Really excited to be hosting Anna Niess. Anna leads product design for the search and discovery team at Slack, and she was also one of the main folks leading the redesign project. Before that, Anna has built tools for community and expression at Tumblr, and she prides herself in bringing a sense of playfulness and solidarity to digital tools we use every day. So let's welcome Anna Niess. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much, Preet and Jen. Amazing job organizing this. It's kind of,
Thank you.
I don't know, I think like regardless of the situation, I've always been kind of an indoor kid, so I feel like I'm like in my element right now. It feels very magical. So it's great to be here with y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm assuming that works. Yeah, so as Preet said, I'm a designer at Slack. We are 100% remote until at least September. And I'm currently based in New York with my partner, Matt, and my dog, Lenny. And in case you're not familiar with Slack, it's a workplace collaboration tool that helps you stay connected to your team and communicate through channels or a sort of topical conversation. This is an example of the app. I expect many of you have heard of it. That might be some of the reason that you're tuning in, or perhaps you've used it for years, or perhaps you're just starting to use it within the past few months, like so many other people. And maybe you use a similar tool like Microsoft Teams or Hangouts. But if you are a Slack user, you'll know, as we've discussed, that we rolled out some pretty big changes recently, probably the biggest set of changes since we initially launched. So just to kind of review those, there's a new top navigation bar focused on helping you get around. We've introduced the ability to compose a message outside of the context of a channel. It's really useful for if you're writing something important, you don't feel like you're going to shoot it off immediately. We've also recentered features like mentions, reactions, drafts, and saved items to help you stay on top of important updates and manage Slack effectively. We allow for further customization of your sidebar with drag and drop reordering and sections. And honestly, as a designer, we've just like generally tidied things up. We kind of internally called it a spring cleaning of information architecture, which felt sort of appropriate. And I was one of many contributors to this project. I'm a design lead in the foundations team focused on search and discovery. And I worked with so many people in different roles across the company to get this out the door, as well as a ton of customers and users. And I kind of wanted to take this time to share some perspective on just like, honestly, how we made the decisions we did, what the design process was like for the project for a change as big as this, and how we worked with people outside of the company along the way. So I thought that to kick it off, I would kind of take it back to the way that Slack used to look before the redesign and talk about some of the challenges that people faced when using the product. One theme is that Slack kind of felt like it was hard to prioritize, especially for people who worked on really large teams who had a lot of channels. It was hard to know kind of where to look first after you came back from a meeting or took a day off. I'm personally in about 600 channels in the Slack, so I felt that pain acutely. And I also equally want to draw attention to the new user experience, which is something that a lot of people are feeling right now. Putting ourselves into the perspective of navigating a new app for the first time, there are just a lot of places to click. And we saw in a lot of research studies that people weren't sure of where to go first. They would kind of land in the app and there were just a lot of things to do. And I think that this is a problem that's fairly common with a lot of rapid growth companies. As products mature and grow, it becomes more complex. When Slack first started, it was focused on smaller teams, and now there are Slack instances with over 100,000 people in them. And they don't necessarily work in tech or media. They work in all sorts of companies across the world and have many different types of needs. And the other thing was more of a sort of internal thing, which is it actually became more difficult to innovate and build new things because we didn't know where to put them. And so All of this is a rather big, hairy design problem. It's not just one feature, but it's kind of how all of the features tie together and intersect. And I think that this can make it really difficult to design for because it's hard to quantify or measure what success looks like. I think if you work in tech, this is a tendency we all have, is to want to sort of have a number that we can point to help reinforce that we're doing a good job and that we're doing good work. But this is a project where like our user goals were like general satisfaction or better comprehension or ease of use of the entire app experience. And those are all really sort of like fuzzy, soft goals. And I think that just because goals are soft and fuzzy doesn't mean that they're not valid. It just means that they're more challenging or ambiguous. So how we sort of took it to the next phase was we assembled a team across many different pieces of the company to work together. At the time, we were still in the office, but we were very much distributed. We worked pretty evenly across Vancouver, San Francisco, and New York. We got in a Zoom room, we did some good old-fashioned card sorts, we did some user stories, and we focused on important jobs to be done, all of our favorite frameworks. And I think like through that, we came up with some guiding principles based on that sort of user feedback over the past year or so. So I'll share them with you. The first is don't make people think. We did not come up with this. There's an entire book about it. But it really did resonate with us as we started through the design process. When people are puzzled to think about so many things, it saps their time and energy. People come to Slack because they want to get work done. They don't want to think about how to learn our product, or they don't want to spend time clicking on different things to find the right one. So we want to make sure that the path is clear and that using Slack feels effortless. The second one is fewer, more important things. When everything is important, nothing is important. This was an exercise in really like finding balance and understanding that not every feature of Slack needs to be front and center, and it really shouldn't be front and center. The last one is be good hosts. So we really strive to understand the context and environment of our customers. The comfort and the happiness of the people using Slack is critically important to us. People don't care about our OKRs. They don't care about our frameworks. They don't care about our design system. We think about those tools as helping us build a better product, but they aren't the end result. So these are some kind of preliminary sketches that we tried and evaluated. We came up with multiple options and variants for how you might navigate the app, and we did actually build these with our engineers. It helped us have a lot of very healthy debate internally, but I think I can also go into like how we sort of evaluated and iterated and shipped what we did today. There are multiple strategies for like evaluating design quality. I'll go into ones that we kind of didn't do first and kind of share a little bit why. I do just want to touch on the sort of like card sorts and sticky note exercises. I think those were really, really useful for like collectively wrapping our heads around the problem, but not really great for evaluating because product development is very messy. Kind of the perfect framework that I imagined in my head when I was doing the initial sketches, like didn't quite work out exactly when you actually try to like get into Figma and build the thing or get into code. Another strategy that is very common is experimentation, or shipping variants to different cohorts of users and measuring how people are using it. And we do rely on this a lot, but we also have a really critical eye for why and when to use it. People, like, I think the main thing here is that people use Slack to do their job, not just to use Slack for Slack's sake. And so we can't really treat people like lab rats. When things are moving around beneath you, it's really disruptive to your work. And the end goal for us is helping you do your work better, and not the usage of a specific feature or a set of features. And so this was such a big change, and so a change to the like core user experience that we couldn't necessarily rely on this to evaluate something so holistic. The other thing, this is like a wonderful word, I just wanted to share it. But something that we were very cautious of, like from the beginning to the end, was relying too much on our internal philosophies. I think it's really, it's fairly common in tech, and more common than we like to admit, to want to sort of philosophize or like have internal debates and trade-offs. And those are really good for sort of rallying a team around a solution. But the people outside of our company who use Slack every day honestly have better and less biased opinions than a designer or an engineer or a product manager. So we really tried to hold ourselves accountable as our cross-functional team to remain as customer focused as possible. So what did we actually do? We used Slack to set up like a really neat method of like customer collaboration that I would really recommend. You don't need to work at Slack to do this. We set up a shared channel. If you've never used that before, it's basically one channel where multiple companies can connect and communicate in. It's really great if you work with clients or vendors or what have you. And this shared channel was shared with around 100 users from dozens of organizations around the world. So we got like a really diverse set of people that were giving feedback. And we would actually like seriously ship them like in progress builds and improve upon it as they gave us feedback. We even kind of like shipped them multiple directions, and they were able to give feedback on different versions. And we could get it in real time, and we could get it unfiltered and very quickly. So for example, this is Sarah, and she is talking about how an older version of what we built didn't give her the context that she needed to send a message in the channel because she didn't understand who was in it. And I can talk about how we changed that. So this is the first sort of version of the old Slack. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of buttons. It's really difficult to understand what's going on there. We reduced it down to the simplest possible thing. And the idea here was like, if we can make it as simple as possible, it'll very clearly illuminate what is most important to show to users. And so this is kind of where we ended up based on the feedback from Sarah and a lot of others of what you need to see in that sort of first view of a channel. The other thing that was like sort of controversial was the top bar where we have history and navigation. And where we settled was that this was really best understood at the top of the app. This was a really big departure for us from the previous interface, and it really didn't go without debate. So I'm sharing one that's pro and one that's against, and there is certainly a lot more input here. But we found that people who work at really large companies with lots of active conversations often rely on search or a keyboard shortcut called Command K to get around the app, sort of like a browser. And our horizontal, like left to right hierarchy often left us struggling with like the right placement for search and navigation. And over the past year, we've had like 2 different search inputs that do kind of the same thing, but not quite. And we knew that it was a problem that we wanted to solve. We had a couple of different directions for this, and I think that the feedback here helped us really like understand the trade-offs and form a clearer perspective on our work. So I think we decided to go for obvious over clever, like rather than reinvent the wheel and create some like wild horizontal search experience, we did what is familiar for many people of searching across the top of the app. And I think like something just really crucial to hammer in here is that like having everybody in this channel allowed for like really free-form dialogue. It was unstructured. It was over a long period of time, like a number of months. And I think like one of the best parts of Slack is like actually feeling connected to people. And it felt really special that Slack was able to facilitate the connection between like the design team or the product team and our users. We all kind of felt like we were part of the same team, and we were often able to ship improvements to people within the same week or the same day that they would suggest to us. So it built a lot of mutual trust, and we were able to like really build on each other's ideas. But that was really based on people that use Slack already every day. Equally important is, especially now, is people who are using Slack for the first time. So we work with our research team to do a benchmarking study, which is essentially we had a set of criteria where we would evaluate like the old experience versus the new one. We would ask people to complete certain tasks, and then we could see how effectively they did it in one versus the other. And we actually had to do this a few different times. The first time we did it, our results were really mixed. And it took a few iterations to get it right, to where we felt really confident that all of the important key actions that we asked people to accomplish, they were doing more easily in the new user experience. So here are some things that we learned. The first is that floating action buttons, or like these things, are not a thing on desktop. Nobody understood or even saw this button on the bottom. And it was interesting because this feature was really more suited for that new user segment, where like people who haven't grown up on IRC, who are not used to chatting all day at work, are coming more from more traditional software, and they really do like look for that button and want to know like, oh, where do I go to send a message? And I think that this was sort of one of our initial directions, because we thought like, okay, it's an established pattern, it would match our mobile app, but just nobody saw it. And I think like we learned that a position like this is much more intuitive for people. It matches other software, and it was much more successful as we iterated through that. The next thing was that right-clicking is not just a power user feature. This we saw in the user studies. Like whenever people weren't quite sure what to do, they would right-click and try to find like whatever information was there. And we also saw this with existing users as something that was high utility. So this wasn't even necessarily a high priority thing that we thought about before, but we managed to figure out how to like integrate it into the initial product launch, because it was something that was just like so useful and discoverable for people that it really improved the overall experience. So then the last phase of work, after we had kind of like validated the bigger bets, was to make it feel wonderful. Beautiful, lively, satisfying, delightful. One of my favorite parts of working at Slack is we build like time for this type of iteration into our product development process. I always say that if like you aren't building time for polish into your like rollout plan, you're not planning right. And the most wonderful thing I could think of was my dog in the sunshine. So I added a picture of him. I couldn't resist. So a couple examples of that. This Zach Sultan, one of my colleagues on messaging team, who is also a design lead on this project, he did a bunch of really beautiful little animations that confirm when you've saved an item, when you've been mentioned, etc. Also, just kind of taking time to zhuzh. It's sort of an internal word that we use, but how to like give it that extra oomph of just giving it a little update and a little pizzazz. So here are some refinements to our mark as read and unread badges. And the other thing is themes. We launched a bunch of new themes that really take advantage of this new layout. So here is eggplant. This is sort of like a designer's dream. Eggplant, Mondrian, CMYK. I think this one is called Terminal. Some just fun ones like Sweet Treat and Banana. And so I've also just wanted to add, I popped in a custom theme for the Remote Design Week, which is kind of fun. And all of this kind of came to a head mid-March, which is kind of right when COVID hit. We closed our 19 global offices, and we were all working from home right when we were sort of expected to launch. And we also had to like reconsider with our product and GTM go-to-market partners, like making some last-minute calls on the strategy for the rollout here. We decided to accelerate the rollout for new teams. It had been tested quite a bit, as I said, And we were really confident the improvements we were providing made people's working lives better. And if they're new to software, if they're new to the software, it doesn't change kind of under their feet as they start using it. And that's really it. I really did just want to end on a nice note. I feel really fortunate to be able to work at Slack right now. Many people are working remotely for the first time and really looking for ways to be connected to each other. So if you're struggling, if you're looking for a job, if you just want to talk, I'm here for you. I think we're all here for each other right now. And feel free to reach out to me at any time. I really hope that Slack and gatherings like this one, like Remote Design Week, can help us remain optimistic and empathetic and caring, not just right now, but like totally far into the future. So thanks. Preet.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anna.
Totally.
That was really cool. Getting to see also not just how you landed at the final design that we all are experiencing, but also the other options. That's always so amazing to see the other iterations. And what was that word you used internally?
Zhuzhing. The spelling is very disputed. But it's like the kind of word where you just like immediately know what it means, even though it's not in the dictionary.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anna, again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.